Hello and welcome to today's Mike Ames show, where we are going to talk to Mike about how he grew and sold two multi-million pound recruitment companies, something that very few people get to do. Now, this is also a pre-recorded Mike Ames show because somebody selfishly decided to go on holiday and have a break, like a selfish person. So that's what we're going to focus on today. The reason that we're doing this is Mike very often goes on podcasts and you go on like interviews on the people shows and they ask you these kind of questions regularly, right? So we figured our audience should get them too.
Yeah, I just did one which prompted this. I just did one recently, not even in recruitment, just to someone else, an entrepreneurial thing. And everyone's terribly interested in different things that I've done. It always sounds a bit me, really. I'm not meaning it to be like that because it wasn't me that did these great things. It was other people, the team that I had. But I knew what was going on and kind of had a finger in the pie, I suppose. So why not share that with my own audience? So here we are.
Yeah, okay. And I mean, it's a quite impressive thing you did, Mike. So you grew and sold two multi-million pound businesses. I think if we added them up and added inflation and things like that, both of them over 100 million pounds, I think, ish, close to.
Well, if you add them all up, it's like 400 million turnover, which is a cumulative turnover. The sale value would be close to 40 million in old money, 60 or 70 million in today's money. So quite a big thing. But I do stress before we go any further and people switch off because they think it's Mike Ames letting off self-esteem. It was other people that did that, really. So I was the orchestrator, but they did it. And,
and the reason I wanted to talk about it, and then since then you've done like over 100 consultancy projects, is there's a lot of things that people are watching this, they're trying to emulate that. So we're going to talk a little bit about how you sort of achieved those things today and get in your mindset as a business leader and a business owner. So without further ado, let's ask the first question. Let's ease in with an easy one. What do you think is the single biggest factor in your success?
Well, this was a question I was asked recently, actually, weirdly, and it's difficult because there are so many things really all drawn together. But if I had to pick one, it would be the construction of your team, the people that you have with you on the journey, and by that I mean, you can only do so much. I think it was J.C. Penney that said, the American food retailer said, the most seminal moment in my business career was when I realized I couldn't do it all myself. And that is not talking about the doing of it, but just the running of it and the growth of it and the construction of that business. And that's so true. So it's building a team of people around you that are there for the right reasons, and they want to be with you, and they want to be with you for the journey, and they believe in the journey. That's the biggest thing. If you've just got employees, people you're paying to do a job, it's going to be a struggle to really build anything great because they're just employees. And if someone offers them a better gig, they're going to go with it. If you get someone who buys into your dream, I know it sounds a bit cliche, doesn't it? But if you get someone that really buys into the dream, they want to achieve what you want to achieve, and their values are like your values. In other words, the things that you hold dear, the rules that you like to live your business life by, and personal life actually, they have the same as you, then they're going to come, and so long as you pay them what they should be paid, they're going to stay. And that's the key to it, because if you've got a very high turnover of staff, it's such a struggle to maintain your business levels. And in a recession, you just plunge down. Whereas if you've got a stable team to stay with you, that work with you, then even in the dark times, that team comes through. And of course, as we found out from the downturn we just had, it's those companies that are held together that are best suited to make the most as you come out of the recession. So all things considered, keep that team, build that team and keep it together, I would think.
I think on that, first of all, SK, the first business, sold over 20 years ago. And how many of your senior management team are you still in contact with? It's quite a few, isn't it, that you still have relationships with?
I became a business partner with two of them and still see a couple of others on a relatively regular basis. I think there's only three. One bloke just disappeared off the face of the earth. Another couple just don't see, just have a contact with, but the rest I do. Our turnover of staff in those days was less than 3% a year. So it's tiny, really. Most of those people left because I wanted them to leave. So I think it is important to remember that you are building a business for them to get what they want out of it.
Yeah. That was the second thing I said. Like, I've met people that have worked with you, both senior management and lower down, and they regularly say that you were a great boss, because I think they all had a very clear idea of what the purpose was, which has allowed that team to then work towards it for the business and for you, but for themselves as well, and to be part of something great. And I think that is a way of helping that team, getting that EVP really strong. We've spoken about EVPs before, and just making sure that the team knew this is you guys are doing this, and you were very good at that, weren't you?
Yeah, God made me very ambitious and equally lazy. So honestly, so I'm very keen to build an empire and get on, but I don't really want to do it myself. I'd prefer other people to do it. And as soon as you get into that mentality, the ability to delegate, that's what that means, really. It's like, well, okay, I can abdicate it, which means I still got my finger on it. So you're doing it, but I'm kind of sort of in control of it. Or you can properly delegate it so someone else does it. And that's the way to scale. If you keep a finger on the pulse, then A, they're never really that independent. So they still need you, which is not a good thing. And B, people don't grow. They only grow when they're in a position which they're kind of out of their depth in a way, but in a controlled fashion so they don't feel abandoned or under threat. One of my favorite sayings really in those days was, there's nothing you can break that I can't fix. So you go out there and do it, and I'll back you. It'll be fine. Literally, there is nothing you can do which will cause me undue problems. I can fix it. Whether that's true or not, I don't really know. But that's what I used to tell them, and that's what I believed. And actually, nothing did happen that we couldn't fix. But that gives people a lot of confidence. And it's like saying, I believe in you, but I'm actually putting the farmstead on it. So go there and do it. And that's the way you get a scalable business. You get a bunch of people that suddenly grow into something that they could never be if they were entirely under your auspice. You know what I mean? So
Yeah.
What are they? I hate metaphors and analogies, but the highest tree in the forest, the shade keeps the trees underneath them growing. When the big tree goes, well, you don't want to be the big tree and go completely, but you want to step aside and let a bit of sunlight in, let people grow. Oh man, that was just a series of melee
That,
of metaphors
that
there.
was a menagerie of metaphors, but I think the point get across. So we've spoken about what was sort of the biggest thing for you. Let's talk now about bear traps, because in business, a lot of times people will come across similar bear traps, and by bear trap I mean something that regularly catches them out or hinders them or stops them. What would you say is the biggest bear trap to having a successful, scalable, or sellable business?
Well, kind of, I suppose, related to the first one a little bit. There's a connection to it, but as a recruiter, when you start off, you're very short term. The people you work for say that's your target for the end of the month, or if you're lucky, end of the quarter. And so everything you do is very centered on the here and now. Is this going to put some money on the table by the end of the month? Yes or no? If the answer is yes, I'll do it. If the answer is no, I probably won't, unless there's nothing else to do, in which case, obviously, I'll do it. But sometimes that short termism continues when someone becomes a business owner. Their obsession is still the end of the month, or maybe end of the quarter, or even end of the year. As a business owner, you must have a much longer horizon, visibility of your business. And I once read that the Japanese have 30-year plans. None of this 5-year plan nonsense for those boys. 30-year plans. Their horizons are enormous. Now, you don't have to have that, but there are plenty of things that you can do now which won't show a benefit this month, this quarter, this year, sometimes not even 2 or 3 years, but ultimately will make your business more scalable and more the foundation that you're building on stronger, so you can build a bigger business if that's what you want to do. And I think it is that ability to not be transactional, to work on your business, not just in it. That's a cliche, isn't it, right there? So we're having metaphor and cliche city today, aren't we?
I know,
Bit of
you're
a
living your best
balance.
life. That's what happens when no one's watching to sort of keep you in check. So I think that's such a strong point, because recruitment, I think, is probably it's one of the hardest industries to do that, because like you say, so often when you're working your way up the ranks and you have bosses, they are continually telling you, like, get your people in for the end of this month, get your people in for the end of the quarter, hit that financial year target. And there's constant barriers. So to take a step back and think more openly and more long term, it's quite difficult for quite a lot of people in recruitment.
Definitely. Yeah, absolutely. But this isn't a money thing, in the sense that you can be stony broke, but you still got to have an eye for the future. Clearly, you're probably going to have more eye on the present, because if you don't pay the bills now, there'll be no future. Right? I
Mm.
get that, but it doesn't stop you from thinking about things like, if I looked at my business, what's the weakest point of it right now? What is the weakest thing right now? Or going to events and just listening to people talk about their experiences, like today, really, people tuning into this. This isn't necessarily going to make you act, but what it might do is make you think differently, begin to think in a different way. So it's thinking and feeding yourself with ideas, and beginning constantly analyzing your business, looking for weak points or underused strengths, which mostly is people, which we talked about
Mm.
earlier, the connection, not making the most of the people that you have. And perhaps sometimes doing too much, maybe if you focus and bring it down, you're going to achieve more. These are more strategic decisions that
Mm.
aren't, hey, let's do this for the end of the month or the end of the quarter. There's a lot more to it than that. And that ability to be non-transactional, to be more strategic, I suppose, in the way in which you think and plan and act, is a real big differentiator. And it's a bear trap dug out by recruiters, because that's how we've all been trained to work. And somebody in your organization, quite a few people, have to be very transactional, because that's
Mm.
where the money comes from. But you, as the leader, must become less and less transactional as your business grows bigger and bigger.
On that, I want to talk now more about that leadership element. I know that you mentioned sort of when we spoke in the first question that having a great team around you is fantastic, but as a leader, I think you're very good at having that big sort of end plan. And I think as somebody who works with you, I think you're great at that. So, as a leader, what kind of qualities do you think you need in order to be a good leader?
I'm glad I'm glad you asked about leader and not manager, because I am a rubbish manager. I've got to be honest with you.
I don't want to lie to our audience as well.
Please don't comment on that, Kirsty. But I that is quite an interesting question, because leadership really is, what does the leader do? Well, they have a clear idea of what the business you've got is trying to achieve. That's the first thing. So what is the end game looking like? And as the leader, you've got some sort of secret goals, and that is to give yourself, as the leader, a nice big income every year so you can pay for the lifestyle that you want, to give you the freedom to work when you want, doing what you want, with whom you want, and where you want, which is great, and for as long as you want these days, and also to make you wealthy. I mean, those are the secret goals. So you can publish what you like for the team, but really that's what, as the leader, you're trying to do for yourself. And so, as the leader, you've got to constantly keep an eye on that. And I'm a big believer in putting other people first, but not to the exclusion of you as the leader. Pay yourself first is what they say. It sounds very selfish, but what it's supposed to mean is, don't just make yourself a slave to that business all the time. Make sure that you're doing okay from it as well. In order to achieve that, you do have to have this length of vision. So this extended vision going into the future, which is more than just the end of the month. I think you've got to be able to draw people into your dream. So the dream has to be well defined, which is a combination of the goals, the strategies, the end game, the values. All of that is the journey. And it's like the longboat, hey guys, I've got this boat, I'm going to cross the North Sea. You don't have to come if you don't want to, but if you do, this is what it's going to be like. This is what's in it for you. This is how it's all going to work. And who's with me? It's that kind of thing, as opposed to being press ganged and tricked into getting into taking a few drinks, taking the Queen's shilling, and finding yourself on a British man of war in the North Sea. So what we want is people to be part of this adventure because they want to be there. And that
Mm.
comes when you can sell the dream. When I used to hire people, and still do this really, sell the dream first of all. It's something you believe in, you want to achieve, and the journey and the experience of what it's like, the vision for them. If you do that before you even talk about the job, you've got them, and you keep them if you're actually achieving that and living it. And that's leadership. So this ability to be able to see and think like other people don't, take much of a long-term view on it, see that investment can take quite a long time to pay back sometimes. No one can, what do they say? No one to hold and no one to fold. That's a tricky one. And the ability to not just sell the dream, but sell the dream to the right people.
Yeah, that's because having that team again is what's going to make the difference so often when it comes to a great business.
Yeah, it is.
One more question on leadership. Is it lonely being that leader at the top? Have you felt
Massively so,
loneliness with
yeah.
it? Mm.
Even now, right? I'm in a business with 3 other people, 2 of which are blood relatives of mine. That would be you and your big galoot of a brother.
Mm-hmm.
Even now, I have times, and you guys are very supportive, and this is going to be your business one day, and blah blah blah. But I still feel lonely sometimes. I have a coach. Alan's my coach for that reason, because I need to have. What do they say? You can't see the label from the inside of the jar.
Yeah.
And you need someone to look at the jar and say, hey, this is the label and it's not what you want, it's going to be this. So I think that reflection of what you're doing, what you're at, and this idea of commercial loneliness, where you're surrounded by people that love you and are interested in the business, but they don't really get what it's like to be you. And so I think if you can surround yourself, put people in your inner circle that have got a stake in your business. I don't mean a financial stake necessarily, but they've got an interest in your business being a success, and then lean upon them and try and give as much to them as they give to you. But sometimes you've got to pass down the line. So you don't want you can give to them, but you can give a lot to the next person coming behind you. So, that's okay, I think. But if you get those people in the zone with you, I think it makes it a lot easier.
Okay. All right. Okay. So the next question I've got is a little bit different. So a lot of recruiters, I can't remember the exact number, are less than 10 people in it. What's the percentage?
74% apparently.
Right.
So
74% of UK recruiters have less than 10 people in it. Whereas, and most people that I know who start recruitment businesses have a larger business in mind. They don't necessarily want to be Michael Page, but they kind of want to be around the like 30-40 employee mark. So why is it, do you think, that over 70% of people are sort of stuck around that 10 people or less?
okay, well, some people don't want to grow their business, right?
Yes.
Apparently, of that 74%, 2/3 of them, 50% of the overall number of recruitment companies, are solopreneurs, pretty much 1 or 2 people. A lot of those just want to keep it that way. They're happy with that, which is fine. But the ones that aren't happy but are still less than 10 people, it's because they yo-yo grow. It's like right up and down. And the magic number is about 8 people. They reach about 8 people, and then the wheels start to come off a little bit. And then they either deal with that and get it back on track, or it kind of implodes a little bit. They take a few steps back and start again, and then repeat the process weirdly, doing the same thing over and again, and expect a different outcome each time. It's not going to happen. So, and the reason for that is that they outgrow their management strength. That's what that means. So when you start in a business, your team is there with you. Well, it's just you to begin with, isn't it? But then you bring a team in one by one, and you manage by proximity, which is what they say. So you manage because you're with them, and you obviously get some reports to tell you, how much business was done last year, how much last month, how much profit was made, a forecast perhaps for the following 3 months. Some reports on conversion ratios. You're getting that kind of data in there, but predominantly, you know what's going on because you're sitting with people.
Right.
And it's so small as well. If the service levels start to drop, pretty much instantly that's the case.
Yeah, and normally the cause of that, I guess, as well.
Yeah, and well, exactly. And because you're probably in touch with all, or if not all, most of the clients that you have. People are working on clients that are really your clients that you let go, or you're aware of, or you brought in and handed over. And so you have that awareness of what's going on in your business. And the turning point is around about 8 people, 6 to 10, right? But let's go with 8. And that is too much for you to manage like that. First of all, you can only have 3 people sitting around you. If you're sitting in the, 3 people around you. Maybe 6, I suppose, or 5 people if you're in a bank of 6. But even that, the guy the other end, you're not really sure what he's doing or she's doing. So, and you get more than that, you've got no clue. People are sitting in different places. And then you've got no mechanisms in place to manage and measure service levels. Nothing to do that. So numbers, you've got that. You can see from the accounts what the numbers are doing, so you can manage that. And if it's not what you think it is, you can jump on it. But you don't have the mechanisms in place to manage quality. And the other thing, as we've talked about on the show many times, is you become less efficient. So your profit per person begins to drop. And the more people you get, the more it drops. So your profit can still be going up, but it's not going up at the same pace as your turnover is going up. So you become percentage-wise less and less profit. And that all comes from the simple fact that you've outgrown your management strength and you need to transition. You can't make a butterfly by making a caterpillar bigger. There comes a point where the caterpillar has to become a chrysalis, reform itself, and then launch out
in a
as a
different
butterfly.
way.
And businesses are like that. And you need to reorder around about 8-ish people, and then again around about 20 to 25 people, then sort of 40 to 50 people, and then 75 to, that those are the kind of break points. You need to reorder the business to gradually make it more and more of an enterprise business,
And
which is entirely scalable.
are those levels chosen because you're getting further away from the sort of action? You're getting further away from the resourcing, from the
Those
for the
groups
servicing.
have been around since Roman times. If you look at how the Roman army was organized, they were organized into those kind of groups, really, those size groups. The centurion didn't look after 100 people, which is the myth. It was 80, and they had leaders of sort of 6 people, and then they knew how that these things could be managed. Platoon, I think, in the UK has got a certain, I don't know how many people in it, but it's kind of human beings work in this way, and so it's only really reflecting how we all are, I guess, in terms of management around us, and that is really important because if you lose control over people, and the fact that you had control over was because you sat with them, then there's a very good chance that they will not have, their values may slip, or you may bring people in that don't have the same values as you, but you don't know because you don't sit with them all the time. And
Or
you
they
don't
interpret the dream differently to you. You've always had this vision that you portray, and then you've said it to somebody, but it becomes a bit like Chinese whispers, and then they interpret it slightly different.
Very much so. And also, when you're a small business, you all go to the pub together and you're talking about it, and the dream is kept alive because it's referred to a lot. But as the team gets bigger, especially if you've got a work from home team, which I'm not a huge fan of, as you know, but that's the way the world is now. There's even less ability to manage by proximity, and you can manage the numbers, and most people have done that, but you can't manage the dream in a remote way. And you need to change the way in which you manage and lead to be able to bring people in and keep people in, as well as manage productivity so that it doesn't drop, and service levels so that they remain high or in fact grow. And that's a problem, to be honest.
Okay, all right. So the next question I've got is a little bit different, and I suppose it's one that I've always wondered about, because like you say, Pete and I are becoming leaders of the business. That's the plan. And I think so often, maybe it's because I'm a millennial and I've been through, like, this will be if this recession kicks off, this will be the third one that I've been through in my short career. And so has there ever been a moment as a leader where you've just felt like you had the weight of the world on your shoulders and you just thought, why am I doing, why don't I quit? Why don't I quit?
Yeah, really. 2 separate occasions. One was in 2020, when in one day our entire business was wiped out, and
it was a great day.
One day gone. No clients, nothing to sell because everything involved going on site. So, and Mrs. Ames, that would be your mother, said to me, "Oh, just call it quits and retire now. You've had enough. Let it go." And I have to say that had you and Pete not been in the business, and it just been me and Melanie, I'd have had a conversation with Melanie, looked after her financially, and said, "Well, I mean, she'd easily get a job, so it wouldn't be a problem." But I probably would have done that, I think, and just let it go and missed out on all the fun, really. But that was a really low point. But that wasn't the lowest point. I think this idea of commercial loneliness, combined with not being scalable, created this perfect wave around about 92, probably, I guess, when we weren't scalable, which means that a lot more depended upon me than it should. And I couldn't do any more. work any more hours. I didn't have any more headspace left to
Mm,
point to anything, focus or thinking time. And then we'd stop growing, and I
mm.
couldn't do anything about that. And it was just horrendous, really.
Yeah, and you also had 3 kids under the age of 7 and a wife and a family, and I think as a business owner, so often people just think of you as a leader of a business, but very often you have families and you have friend groups and you sometimes have hobbies, and all of those things start to fall apart, and then everything becomes the business, and it becomes really hard. So why didn't you quit? Or I suppose the question I
Well,
should ask more is, how did you get through that? Because I think a lot
well,
of people are going to experience it at least once.
oh yeah. I mean, there's something really. Okay, twice in 30 odd years isn't bad, I suppose. But I've had some down points, but they were the lowest, really.
Mm,
I think. I mean, when Mike died, weirdly, he was my business partner, and he died 18 months into the business. Weirdly, that affected me personally, and I went insane,
yeah.
completely unhinged for a year, and can't remember any of it really. But we got through it, and I knew we would because we had to. Otherwise, I'd lose my house and have to go and live with your grandma, which was not going to happen. So
None of us would have been happy with that.
I was
God bless
massively
you.
incentivized.
God
But
rest your
these
soul.
two things, there was no way I could see a way forward. And it's ultimately very foolhardy, I think, as a business owner to think you can separate business and life. You can't. I think it's
Mm,
bad enough if you're a senior manager or a leader within a corporate environment. But if you own your own business, no, the two are completely linked. And
mm,
what you do at work massively impacts your family and vice versa. But certainly the push is from the business to your family, and your family loses out. And that, as you quite rightly point out, was the thing. I nearly had a nervous breakdown in those days. I mean, it was very, very bad because there was no way out. Everybody was upset. I couldn't do any more. Things weren't going. I didn't know where else to turn to. And in the end,
mm,
I mean, cut a long story short, we hired a consultant, yeah, and she came in, and Anne Marie, and showed us how to build a scalable business, or showed me
mm,
particularly how to build a scalable business and how to delegate and how to build a team and how to manage by numbers, not by proximity. And it was an 18-month project, I think, but that changed my mentality, and it was like I could breathe. It's like I've got a corset on, not that I've ever dressed in
No
that way.
judgment. There's no judgment here.
But and then suddenly it was released, and I could breathe, and I could see the light, not just at the end of the tunnel, all around me. And that was the turning point. If you look at our growth from then onwards, it was phenomenal. It was
Mm,
huge growth. And all of that came about from that shift, which originally started in having a nervous breakdown in my hallway in a small house in Hensford. So, that's a tough thing. But I tell you, at least piece of advice, I suppose, around this is everything passes.
mm.
Everything, no matter how bad you feel and whatever happens, everything passes. Nothing is as bad as you think it's going to be. Even if the worst things happen, you kind of still get through it. But you must surround yourself with good people, and you must try and keep a bank full of money. You can.
It
Six
definitely
months,
makes things easier, doesn't it?
6 months operating costs as a minimum. Monthly operating cost times by 6 is what you should have in the bank. Your money, not the bank's money or the VAT's money or the
Yeah.
taxman's money. Your money, because that takes the heat off a little bit for you. But everything passes. Get through it.
I think as well, it's so easy for people who look at you and see what you've done to think that, oh, everything must have gone perfectly. And that's, I think, an important point to make, is there will be moments as a business owner, as a leader, where stuff is going to hit a fan, and it's going to be real hard.
It is, yeah. One of the shows I'd like to do, similar to this, except I'd like to do it live. I'd like to do the things I did wrong, really, and what I learned from it, because I think my
Mm,
business was shaped by my mistakes, weirdly, not by my successes.
mm,
It was shaped by my mistakes and the things I did wrong, and then obviously reacted to those things and did something else, which turned out to be right. But I did a lot of those. We
mm.
shared some today, but there are loads of other things. And if you're afraid of failure, or you in some way want to cover up failure, that will hold you back. You should celebrate failure. I mean, you don't want to repeat the same thing twice, the same
Different.
mistake, obviously, but if you make a mistake, you've just learned how not to do something.
Hmm.
And therefore, if you analyze it and reverse it, you've probably learned how to do something too.
Mm.
And the same goes for everybody else in your team. Celebrate failure. So strange thing, doesn't it? But come on, that's the thing that we've learned that doesn't work. So we can press on and not do that again, which means we've moved forward in a stronger way, which I'm all in favour of.
And me. Okay. Okay, Big Mike. I mean, we've come to the end of our time. I could do this for another half an hour, but please let us know if you want us to do that Mike Ames show on Mike's mistakes as a business owner, as a business leader. Let us know in the comments if you want that. Probably think we're going to do it anyway, but it's always nice to know if people want it. So, Mike, I'm going to come to you in a second for your top tip. But before then, next week, we have got a really, really good show, I believe, on the power of focus and sort of
Niche,
niches.
yeah, it is, yeah. Chris Stringer, very successful recruitment owner in Birmingham, but does all his work in one city in Europe, in Amsterdam. And clearly, I'm not going to share how profitable he is as a client, but he is very profitable, and the growth has been solid, and he's got a good business around him. And he puts a lot of that down to his ability to say no. Really, it's no, enough's enough. I'm not doing that. This is what we do. We could do that, but we're not going to. We're doing this, and that, I think, is so powerful, and he's the epitome of it. So I'm really looking forward to having him on the show, actually.
And me, it's going to be a good one. Okay, so I come to you for our final tip. I like this. I like a practical thing that people are watching. So they're watching this and they're either resonating with what you've been saying, or they're looking forward to sort of growing this really big business. What would your top tip be to have a similar, experience to you?
I'm going to start I'm going to finish with where I started. It's your people. So we would say this, right? It's, oh man, does that sound cliche? But no, read the words. Think about your business partners, how you treat them, how you involve them in decision-making processes, how you listen to them, how you accommodate them, the freedoms that you give them, the rewards that you give them, and how those rewards come across, and the respect that you give them. If you treat your staff in a similar way as business partners, and we went all the way. I mean, everyone's always owned shares in my companies and been part of a decision-making process in one way or another. I mean, we didn't have a board of 85 people, obviously, the first business, but that ability to bring people in and listen to their ideas and act upon, and be open to criticism and be open to ideas, just like you would a business partner. That is the mentality, I think, that builds winning teams right there. And I would encourage everyone to explore what that means for them.
Fantastic. So once again, this has been a bit of a different show today. So do let us know if you enjoyed it. But as always, we will see you next Thursday when we will be talking to Christina. Mike, thank you so much for today. Thank you for opening up and being honest about some stuff that I think is sometimes a little bit difficult for people to talk about. So thank you very much.
Thank you. And as this goes out, I'm probably just going to go to the bar in Madeira and have a gin and tonic. So, except I don't drink, but maybe just a tonic.
A tonic. Okay.
All right. See you next week, everybody.